All right. Clap on 3. 3, 2, 1. Why you do this, bro? Like,
Why do you always say clap on 3?
Because you said clap on 3,
And
but
then you count down 3, 2, 1. So let's clap on 1.
clap on 1. Clap on. Y'all got it though. Y'all still did it. Did y'all not?
Because we're smart. But,
Yeah.
But did y'all do it? Our message got across anyway.
all right.
You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We're leaving that in there, bro. Go. Start this off. Stop selling the bag. All right. Clap on 3. 1, 2. Eric, what you doing?
I'm ready.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
All right, y'all. Welcome to the I Found a Friend podcast, where we're your friend helping you navigate life's journeys. It's your host, Eric Diggs.
Jordan Diggs.
Jonathan Diggs.
All right, let's get right to it. But before we get to it, if y'all are not following us on YouTube, if y'all not following us on Instagram, if you're not subscribed to us, what are you doing? Nah, but follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. What else we on?
Yeah, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram.
And
Follow
then
us.
Apple Podcasts,
You know what
Google
I'm saying?
Podcasts, Spotify, all that. YouTube Shorts.
Bro, all platforms, right?
Like,
platforms.
YouTube and YouTube Shorts are the same platform.
I mean, the way YouTube pushing this is a little different now, but essentially it's the same thing. But anyways, we're going to get into it. It's the day after Father's Day. And no, quick question. If your job didn't allow you to get off for Juneteenth, is your job racist?
That's the question of the hour. I just got a new job and they let me off. So if your job don't let you off, I don't know. Take it up with the boss.
It's gotta be racist.
Yeah, I'm the only black guy in the office, and we got off.
Gotta be racist. Somebody in the comments was like, "Why are courts off on Monday?" Because they're going over the YNW Melly trial. For those of you who don't know, YNW Melly was a rapper who allegedly committed murder like 5 years ago, but his trial is going on now. So he was like, "Why are the courts off on Monday?" And they're like, "You're black, you don't know why."
That's
He was
crazy.
going back and forth in the comments.
Are the courts off? I heard. I saw
Yeah,
an article that
it's a
said
national holiday.
I saw something that said the Supreme Courts were still not off. But I don't
They
know.
might be, but it's a national holiday. It's a federal holiday.
It is a federal holiday, though. Nah, but shout out Juneteenth for real, for real. Shout out my people. All right, but today, I'm going to be talking about Father's Day, just the importance of fatherhood and what it means to have a father figure in your life and what it means when you don't have a father figure in your life. I know for us, we've been blessed to have our father in our lives since the day one, and been super supportive of us and raised us up and, really put us on game by a lot of stuff. And so we're really appreciative of that. But we do understand that there's a lot of people with broken relationships. There's a lot of households that don't have fathers in it. A lot of people lacking a father figure. And that does have an effect on your life, whether you want to admit it or not. And so we wanted to dive into that. And first of all, I just want to start off by asking, what is one of the biggest benefits that you guys have seen of having a father in the household?
That's a great question. I can start us off, and I would say definitely leadership. Dad has definitely taught us how to be men. There's certain things that you just don't even realize. I just remember him taking us into the bathroom one day and teaching us how to shave. It's just those simple things that he just teaches you how to be a man, and leadership also, and how do you treat women. I know we were out with a couple friends yesterday, and we were just talking about opening up the car door, and it was a big deal to them because they never had a man in their life open up the car door. But our dad taught us that's how you treat women when you're out with them. If they're getting into a car or stepping into a building, you're the one who needs to lead. You need to protect and look out for the women who's around you. So that's the biggest thing I would say.
I was actually researching this only because it was hard for me to articulate. A person asked me, they're like, "What's the benefit of having a dad?" And there are certain things I was able to explain, but there's other things that I just couldn't really explain or put into words. And so one of the biggest benefits of having a father that I researched is emotional stability. A lot of people don't realize, but a father can actually add that needed element of discipline and mental fortitude, because they are usually not stricter, but more harsh and more upfront with the way that they present things. And it has a balance between a nurturing side. So it allows people to have this well-rounded emotional state. So a father can provide that emotional stability that you need. And so it's allowed me to go through life with a mental toughness and a mental attitude, because when I look at my dad, I see he's one of the, if not the hardest working person I know. Like, if he has an idea, he's going to go after it. He's going to go get it. And it doesn't matter if he's not feeling well. It doesn't matter how he's feeling mentally. Like, he's going to provide for his family. And so that's something that I really admire, because it's like that mental fortitude is not always going to be there if you don't have a father present.
Yeah, let's just speak on that. Like, he's the hardest working man, like, we know, and that's so true. We had a
Hold on, pause. Shout out Dad. He's working the cameras right now. For those of
He is
y'all who don't
working,
know,
yeah.
on YouTube, he's the one that actually does our camera work. So like, thank you for that.
Yeah, so I don't know, he just like gotten himself into like so many different endeavors as we grown up. I think his biggest one that like we can all think of is like his washer and dryer like side hustle. He's found a way to make money off of buying washers and dryers on Craigslist and flipping them, and he even wrote a book about it and started a YouTube channel. And like his book has affected so many people's lives and helped them also have a side hustle through like Craigslist buying and selling. So it's just like so inspirational, because like I'll like hear like the garage open early in the morning or even late at night. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. I just know Dad's going out and he's working, and I'm like, wow, like that just shows me how I need to be as a man. Like I need to, make the money when it's, necessary. And he also like finds time to spend with us while doing that. It's not like he just puts work in front of us. He balances it out. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's what I would say would be like one of the biggest things I've seen just from our personal father is just understanding and learning how to set priorities. And my dad has always kept the family first, for sure. Like, I know that he's been at almost all of my athletic events growing up, any big things that we had going on. Like, he was always there. And a lot of people can't say that about their parents in general. And so, like, understanding where we came from, not having a lot, and even when he was working, multiple jobs and multiple side hustles, he always made time to show up to all of our events, and that's really special. And so for me personally, it's like, okay, like, I have a family's heart, and I have a family first attitude, and that comes from seeing the way that my dad put us first.
For sure. And we can like even take this back to our dad's like past. He didn't necessarily have a father present in his life, and he's talked to us about how like that has affected him. And one thing he said was he didn't want that same thing to happen to us. Like whatever we go through in life, he said he wanted to be there for us and with us, and like having that support is invaluable, because like I know whenever I need help or whenever I'm in a crisis, like I can always reach out to my dad, and I know he'll come help me with anything. Like I got sick on a staycation work trip that I was doing. So I text my dad, I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling well. Like he was there to pick me up in like the next 30 minutes. And like, it just feels awesome knowing that like my dad's dependable and I can depend on him whenever I need him.
I think that is really interesting, though, just understanding the dynamics of people that grew up in a home without a father, especially coming from men. Some people will perpetuate that and be like, oh, my dad wasn't in the household, so I don't have to be there, or I don't know what being a father looks like, and I just don't want to be in that environment kind of thing. But it's like, as a father, as a man, I believe one of the most important things you can do is have a family. It's like, if you're not building towards a family, if you're not building towards a generation after you, a legacy after you, what are you building? Everything else is just gonna go away when you die. So I really appreciate my dad. I remember having a conversation with him, and it just stood out to me because there were things that I was telling my mom about that I wasn't necessarily just like understanding about my dad. And then my dad came up to me and he was like, hey, like the biggest thing for me in y'all lives was just being there. He's like, I didn't necessarily have that father figure, and so just being there, being present, and being the best father I could was like the most important thing. So that helped me understand a lot about my dad. It's like, sure, there's things that I could nitpick at and be like, oh, he did wrong, but in his eyes and his perspective, he was doing it the best he knew how. And so like, I know that even like the example that he gave me was more than I could ask for. So it's like the things that I was nitpicking at is just like, okay, if I look from his perspective, understanding where he came from, not having a dad, you know what I'm saying? Being as successful as he is without even a college degree is just like, I couldn't ask for more, for real. So I'm really thankful.
I think another thing too is, like you said, a lot of people don't have father figures, and then they either project that on the way they react to the world and just use that as an excuse, or they use that as a motivating factor to be better for their future family. And I like that my dad used that as a motivating factor, and I know that it's really instilled in us. Like, we need to take what he did and take it to another level. And so each generation should continue learning from the previous generation. I don't want to have, the negative things that affected him and then that end up affecting us, take that forward. It should be about a learning journey and taking whatever energy that is and using it as a fuel. Because at the end of the day, whenever you do have a family, they don't know about all the past experiences that you've had in your life. All they know is about who you are now in that moment to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I kind of want to like shift us and throw out this question for you guys. Like, so if you don't have a father present in your life, because I actually made a TikTok video and it was like Happy Father's Day, and there's a lot of comments like, I don't have a father in my life. And so like, what would you say to these people like who don't have fathers in their lives?
I say that you should look around. A lot of times you can find a father figure within your community, within your line of work, within whatever you're doing. I know for me, there was coaches that were there to help enhance, what my dad wasn't able to do. But so that could be a father figure there, or a mentor, anybody like that. Just looking outside of your circle and being open to allow somebody to come in and pour into your life. I know without the father figure, it's a tough spot, and it can be easy to close yourself off from the world because at the end of the day, everybody wants their parents' love. But understanding that, okay, I need to open up to those around me to understand that there are other people in our lives that God has put in our lives. And then also understanding that we have a heavenly Father too. And he is the perfect Father, and you can look to him. And that's something that's also important. I think a lot of people take their earthly father and that keeps them from connecting with God because they're like, I didn't have a good father down here, so I'm not going to be able to connect with God. But he's like, I am the perfect father, and I can have and fill all those voids in your heart, and I can teach you what a perfect father looks like if you would allow me to.
That is something that I've definitely noticed. Just understanding how influential your parents are on the various viewpoints that you have in terms of my relationship with God. My father wasn't there, so I don't feel like God is there. Or my relationship with love and, other people. Like my father, you know what I'm saying? He got a divorce with his wife, so now I don't believe in marriage. So it's like how you view a lot of different aspects really does stem from your parents. And if you don't have a loving father, then that would definitely be something that you should pray about, look for, like they said, mentor, pastor, coach, different things in place. And like Eric said, it's very important to get outside your bubble because if you don't have a father in the community that you're in, that's not going to change. Somebody might come into your life and it might be that, but 9 times out of 10, that's not how it works. So that might have to be something that you actively seek and look after. And if you don't have a father, that's also something that I would recommend therapy for because that influences you in so many different ways that you just don't understand or realize.
That's huge. Something you said was like your parents impact the viewpoint that you have in the world. And I would say that's so true. Like dad like grew up teaching us very realistic things about the world, how the world works. And like he would even like check us. He would be like, yeah, y'all are book smart, but y'all are not street smart. So, like y'all need to be smarter. But like he's very realistic about how the world works. And like I feel like because of that, like yes, we take our academic side, but we can also take like a more, I guess, grounded viewpoint of the world and how the world works. And then also like in terms of our viewpoint, he was very intentional about expanding our viewpoint. Like he set us up to go to a private school, and then he also worked at the airport. So he was intentional about taking us out of the country to experience, other cultures outside of our own bubble. And I think that's pretty cool because I feel like he really cultivated like a well-rounded young men to not just be so in our head and like in our little bubble, but to actually see the world for what it is.
I do remember that when he first got the airport job, like literally we would just take day trips. We would go to the Mall of America, come back the same day, like just because. In the moment, I didn't appreciate it. I really didn't because, it just was tiring and we were just always trying to go somewhere. But then as I get older, I understand, like, man, like he didn't get to fly on a plane until he was in his 30s or whatever. And that was his first time ever getting outside of, the States for real, outside of, visiting family. It's definitely first time getting outside the country. So to be able to share those experiences with us at a young age and give us a worldwide perspective at a young age, that's huge because it has shaped us in the way that we think, the way that we act now. Like we know that this world is bigger than Nashville, Tennessee. This world is bigger than America. There's so much out there. Don't limit yourself to where you at. And a lot of times you don't know different until you see different. And that's what I always say. I live by that quote. And so seeing different cultures, seeing that, hey, you can get outside the country, you can travel the world, doesn't matter where you're from. You can experience what this world has to offer. That's huge because a lot of people only have a mentality that's limited to within their community. You can ask the majority of people, they'll be like, yeah, I've never been outside my home state. And that's sad because this world is so big.
I saw a tweet, and it was like, whenever I have a daughter, I'm going to make sure to take her out the country so she's not impressed by these little boys who take her 20 minutes down the street. And it's funny, but like he said, like so many people literally haven't left their county, left their state, you know what I'm saying, let alone leave the country. And so, and you're surrounded by just the same old, you're going to be impressed by anything versus, you know, being able to have a world view of what's going on. Like just being able to say, oh, we went to the Sistine Chapel, or we went to the Vatican, or we went to South America. Like, it's not to flex or it's not to throw that out there, but it's just like, these are experiences that you won't be able to experience within the United States, and you'll be able to talk about them. And it's a really cool thing to see, and it just broadens your sense of the world. Like, the way culture moves in Europe is so different, and I wouldn't have been able to experience that without my dad, and I'm thankful. I think my dad is like the king of finesse. Like, if there's something that he's gonna make it happen. So people are like, oh, how did you fly so much? Like, I be telling people all the time, if you want to fly a lot, work at the airport. I learned that from my dad. Or he's got a publishing business. He's got all kinds of different businesses, and it's like when he started asking him the nitty gritty of how it works, he's finessing. I'm not finna put his secrets out there, but he's finessing. It's really crazy what he's done.
Yeah, and it's just like taught us how to be, you know, wiser. They say like, don't think smarter or work harder.
Start over.
Let him cook.
Work smarter, not harder. And my dad is the king of work smarter, not harder. And I appreciate that because, like, there's so much stuff in life that you can do if you know how to do it. If that makes sense. Like, information really is power. And that's one thing about my dad. He's very, like, he's going to educate himself and have the most information possible. But even, like, speaking about our dad, like, he's also, like, not just like a father and mentor to us, but like to so many other people. Mm-hmm. I know people from our life group, which is a Bible study we have, they call him Papa Diggs because he really is a father to everyone. Like all these young people who come into our house on a, you know, weekly basis. And like, I'm even thinking about someone who used to live with us and how my dad helped him out. And like, he helped him get his first car and his first apartment. Like, I think that's what fathers are good for. They can teach you those like very fundamental things that you need to know. Like, of course you can learn on your own, but when you have someone helping you out and guiding you, you can do it the right way and the smart way. And like, as we're preparing to leave our house and move into our own apartment, our dad has just been pouring so much information into us so that we like start out right. And that's like, I feel like what fathers can do. They can put you ahead of the curve, you know, ahead of where you would be if you didn't have someone mentoring you in that way.
Yeah, I literally had people texting me saying, hey, tell your dad Happy Father's Day, which I forgot to do, but I'll tell you that after. But yeah, I had people texting me. So they were like, yo, I'm really thankful for what he's done in my life. But like, tying back to what I said earlier, like another practical thing that he taught me in terms of like working smarter, not harder, like it's really about who you know, not what you know also. He pushed me to be tenacious at my HBCU, and it pushed me out of my comfort zone, like that mental fortitude aspect that I was talking about. So when I was going to school, a big part of the reason why I was able to go there for free was because my dad, or not free, but pay off my loans, was because my dad, he was always looking for scholarships for me. He was always looking for scholarships for me. Even when I didn't want to look myself, I was like, I'll just figure it out. I'll take on loans. But he knew the detriment that taking on loans could have on my future. So he was always putting me on game. He was like, John, make sure you do these scholarships. John, make sure you do da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, all right. But when I started getting them and I started seeing like I was able to pay off school, I was like, wow, thank you. And there was one time during COVID when my student loans were getting like way more expensive. And so he was like, you know what, let's go up to campus and we're going to find somebody in the financial aid department and we're going to see if they have scholarship. So we went to the financial aid department for like an hour, 2 hours, and we waited on somebody. We had a meeting. He talked to me. He gave me money. I didn't even really have to apply. He's like, just show me your GPA and we'll see what we can do. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without my dad. So he was just showing me the importance of going after things that you think are important and not being afraid to say no, making sure that you reach out to people and talk to people in position of power who can help you out. And these are things that I don't think I would have learned if it was just my mom. Respectfully, like I love her, but like my dad, he's just like different. Like I can't explain it. Like that's not something that not, you know what I'm saying? Like that's only something that a dad would do for you, for real.
Yeah, I agree. And it's crazy as we're talking, like I'm just thinking about all the like little intentional things that dad has done throughout our lives that I didn't even remember. Like you just like pass over your head. You're like, oh yeah, dad did that. But like even like when I was moving in and out of college, my dad would like drive 8 hours to my campus just to help me move in, just to help me move out. Like that's just crazy to me. Like he would just take that time just to do that for me. You know, like I don't know. I'm just very appreciative now that I'm thinking about like the little intentional things that dad does throughout, has done throughout the years, So
Yeah, it's crazy. Like when you think about everything, it's like, yeah, our dad has been pretty good. Not perfect, but he's been great. But in general, though, fathers and men get such a bad rep, and it's crazy. Like Mother's Day is gonna be publicly exclaimed. You're gonna see all these advertisements for it. The church is gonna be filled on those days. There's gonna be all these gifts and dinners, reservations filled everywhere. But it's not the same for Father's Day. Instead, it's a trail of hurt and broken people. And it's a reminder of that, broken relationships. But when you really look back at it, you just see a trend of fatherless people being fatherless and fatherless people not knowing how to father. And so at the end of the day, I feel like somebody has to say, I'm going to take a stance and I'm going to create something new. I'm going to be what I never had. I'm not going to take my negative experiences of what I didn't have and project that into the future. Because the irony of it is, I know there's so many people that's like, my dad wasn't there for me. I'm going to do everything he didn't do for me and make sure my kids have what they didn't have. But then they end up doing the exact same thing that their dad did to them, which their dad's dad did to them, and then their dad's dad did to them. So, it's like a cycle. So how do we break that cycle?
Communicate. Like my dad, he told me, he's like, I don't do a good job of communicating, and I'm aware of that. He's like, but I'm trying. And whenever you hear things from people's perspectives, it really does make a world of a difference. It's like, okay, we talked about things like my dad, he would like snap on me for things that I thought were inconsequential. I'm like, why are you doing that? But then he told me, he's like, sometimes I come home from a long day of work and I see all these things that I feel like would be obvious and you didn't do them. And it's just another thing, which is like, it's not even necessarily that thing is not done. It's just like, I got a lot more on my mind stressing me out. I'm like, oh, okay. It's not me. Or it might be me because I be tweaking sometimes. But he's like, it's not me. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, if you could do these things, it would help me feel a lot better when I come home. And I'm like, oh, okay, I understand. And so like, even though he isn't the best at communicating, he does try. And so like me coming from his perspective, trying to see things from his perspectives help me shift. And then that helps me mend the relationship. Cause it's like, he didn't have somebody to teach him how to communicate. He didn't have somebody to tell him it's okay. Like you have to also take that into account. Like people from like before the 2000s, whatever they want to call them, like Gen Zers or whatever, like they weren't taught that it's okay to express your feelings. They weren't taught that it was okay to open up. They weren't taught that it's okay to cry. So it's like, these are things that impact him and then in turn impact us. Cause we're like, why aren't you doing these things? It's like, he wasn't taught how, but now he's learning. And so like, if you're not communicating that, if you're not trying to understand things from his perspective, understanding that he didn't have these things in his place in his life, then it's not going to help you build your relationship. You got to move yourself. You got to remove yourself from yourself.
Yeah. And one thing I want to say and kind of like addressing Eric's question was in terms of like, how do we break this mold of like not having like fathers around? And I really think it's being more intentional about like our lives and what we do and our actions, because like, I don't know if you have someone, a girlfriend or something, I don't know, just be intentional about like knowing like what are the consequences of X, Y, and Z actions, and taking on that responsibility if that responsibility falls upon you, I think as a generation, like our generation's like huge on hookup culture, and like everyone wants to just like sleep around and, hook up with as many people as possible and date as many people as possible. But I don't know if you go into, I guess, dating and just relationships with more intentionality and realizing you want to build a life with someone and not just sleep around with them. I think that's kind of what also could help with like fathers being present in someone's life, because I was watching a TikTok and this dude had like 12, I guess, kids, and like his mindset was, oh, like I can just like sleep around, like they're not really my responsibility, like they're the mom's responsibility, like I pay child support. But as we said, like that's creating broken homes, and what we're talking about here is like whole homes. So just like switching that mindset to be more intentional and thinking about more than yourself.
Yeah, like what does it mean to be a man? I think that's what you're getting back to. It takes men holding each other accountable. Men have to hold men accountable. You can't have the society do it, women do it. It has to be men holding men accountable. And the biggest thing that's been helping me with that is just finding a community of people who are accountable, a community of people who are being intentional about cultivating not only their personal relationships, but also those around them, and then pouring into the people around them. A community where you can learn from others people's successes and failures, a community where people can point out, hey, you need to be there for your kids. Hey, you need to tap in because you're tweaking right now, and that's going to affect you long term. Men as in general don't have that. I feel like around the board, like I feel like it's always like a competition. We're always trying to one up the next person, but instead we end up just hurting ourselves. We need to learn how to work together, because at the end of the day, it's the people that come up behind you that you end up hurting the worst, and you won't really realize it until you are older. You're 35. I mean, not 35, but you're like, 50, 60. Your kids are grown. And you're like, dang, bro, I don't have a relationship with them. It's crazy. Like, the older you get, the things that you used to chase after, you don't really care about it as much anymore. The older you get, you're going to care more about relationships. I guarantee it. You're not going to care about chasing the bag. You're not going to care about having the nicest things in the world. Because when you get older, that's really when you start to see who was really there for you. Do you have family there for you? Do you have real, genuine relationships? Or are you just going to be that lonely old person sitting by yourself with just broken relationships? Even if you do achieve everything you want to achieve, if you don't have that relational currency,
I love that.
you're going to regret it.
I'm sorry. I love that because it's like no matter how successful you are, it's never going to equate to having a fulfilling relationship in your life. And relationship could be a spouse, it could be children, it could be friendships, just someone who's dependable. And you can run to when you're in a crisis or like when you're down. Like no matter how much success you have, and I'm saying this as like someone who's had success within the world of social media, but like none of that has ever really brought me true happiness. Like I might have gotten happy for a day. Like I hit X amount of followers on social media and I got X amount of money from social media. I'm happy for a day, but like in the long run, like it doesn't fulfill me. Like that happiness is like waning and wanes so fast. And yeah, you can, as what we were saying earlier, like you can kind of build up all this success, but like what is it at the end of the day if you don't have anyone to share it with? And like you see like celebrities all the time, you're like, oh, they had everything, why are they going through depression? Or oh, they had everything, why did they commit suicide? And it's just because like success does not equate to a fulfilled, well-rounded, holistic life.
All right, so I say to close out, what do y'all got like a funny story or like a funny memory of dad? Because he's one of the funniest, if not the funniest people I know for
I was
real.
going to say, we got to describe that first. Like he's a comedian. He breaks the ice immediately with people. It's just so crazy to me, like how he can go up to anyone and make a joke. I would say a funny story I had was at our old church. He used to do this a lot. He would take people's car keys, and then he would take their car and like move it around, and then they would walk out into the parking lot like, "Yo, where's my car at?" And he had moved it around,
Yeah, our dad, he can make anybody laugh, even when you don't want to. That's truly a gift. Anybody that comes and says like, dude, your dad's so funny. I'm like, yeah, he can really make anybody laugh. Shoot, I don't know. There's so many. Just hard to narrow down just one. I feel like at the top of my head. He's just always messing with people's kids. Like I remember one time, like he did it to us too. Like he would roll them up tight in a blanket, like the little burrito, and the kid, it's fun in the moment. Yeah, he's rolling us around. Then, like, another 15 minutes where you just stuck and you realize you can't get out. Kid starts crying. Yeah, he just looking at it, just laughing. The parents just rolling their eyes.
Or spinning around toddlers, right? Making them dizzy. Then, like, pushing them down.
Bro, my dad will just say like the most off the wall thing that'll make you laugh. Like he'll walk up to you and like I'll be talking to somebody who'll walk up to us and be like, "Did he tell you about the time John went to bed when he was 8?" Like completely unrelated to what we're talking about whatsoever. Then you start stuttering and stuff. Like he just does stupid stuff like that. Most of the time you're not gonna win in a comeback against him. Like he's just quick with them. So
Nah, the worst is like when he would yell at you for something and you piss, and then like 2 minutes later he'll come back making a joke. I'm like, dude, I ain't trying to laugh. It's not funny. He'll always do that.
That's funny. Wait, I was about to say something, but it like slipped my mind. Oh yeah. When John pulls on this vlog camera, it's so funny. He be like, "Get that camera out of my face!" But like, he wants the camera in his face. But he's like, "Get that camera out of my face." We're like, "Okay, Dad."
Nah, but this man is genuinely like funny. Like, you know how most people try to be funny and they're not funny. Like this man just is funny, and so that's really cool. But
And it's crazy when you don't know him. Sometimes people are like, "Wait, is he being serious?" Like he'll say something so serious, and it sounds like he's being for real. But like, are you being for real? And half the time he's joking. So like, even sometimes he catches us, but like we've learned him over the years. So we're like, "Okay, Dad." Like that's my response whenever he does something. So like, "Okay, Dad." But yeah, if you don't know him, it could be like the funniest thing. Like one time, he actually did this yesterday. So if you say you know somebody, he'll be like, "Oh yeah, who are you married to, or who's your best friend?" And they say their name, they'll be like Mike. Like, "Oh, you know Mike? What's his last name?" And then they say his last name. He's like, "No, you don't know Mike Johnson." And they're like, "Oh, you know Mike Johnson," but like the whole time he's joking around and they don't know for real. So it's hilarious.
yeah, but I would say overall though, like Dad's been great, but we understand that a lot of people don't have that father figure in their life. But we want to change that stigmatism of Father's Day. Like, you can be a great father even if you came from brokenness. But I think the hardest thing you're going to have to do is take the time to properly heal from your past. Because if you don't, you're going to put that on in your future, onto your future relationships, into the way that you view life in general. And so we want to encourage you to take the time to properly heal from your past, because that's the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. But that's what's going to change this trajectory and this trend. And that's something that we've been intentional about, taking the time to properly heal from our past. Even if we did have a father in our life, there was still some brokenness that came into our family due to the brokenness that my mom and my dad came from. And we don't want to take that brokenness into our future relationships or to our future families. And so we want you to know that we are a community of people that are actively trying to be better, actively pursuing to be the best that we can in the future, and taking life holistically. And this is not just something that we talk about, it's something that we actually live ourselves. And if you're looking for a community of people like that, if you're looking for a real friend, we want you to know that you found one here.